What's up, guys? How's it going? It is Matt here. So, what I want to talk about today, guys, is there's this argument that I've seen for years. I don't know if you want to call it an argument, but basically, there's a lot of trainers, YouTube trainer, online trainers, and stuff like that too, that will basically tell you that if you really want to get pistol training, if you really want to do that, you can't just watch YouTube. You have to go in person and you have to train. That's the only way you get good at pistol training, and you just don't know what you're going to get when you get on YouTube. So just go get some training, and usually they say go get training with me or something like that, or they'll recommend other YouTube channels that also, go figure, other YouTube channels that are also trainers that are part of training schools. So I want to talk a little bit about this topic today. Now, before I get into the topic, as usual, I'm going to give a shout out to my friends over at Call Beyond Duty Coffee. Some of you may get tired of me saying that they're a good coffee company. Well, if you were to go check their stuff out and get some of their stuff, you'll see exactly why I like their coffee stuff, because it is really good, and I'm a huge coffee person, because if I don't have coffee, my head is pounding all day long. And I'll tell you what, they make really good coffee, and I happen to love their product, and that's why I constantly talk about them. So down below in the description, there will be a link. Go check them out. Go get yourself a sample pack, a subscription, whatever it is. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. You won't be disappointed, all right? So go check them out. Go give them some love, because they are first veterans and first responders that make really good organic coffee. Now, when it comes to this topic, I have a feeling that this video today is going to be kind of a little bit longer than your average video. And the reason behind that, guys, is because there's a lot I want to cover in it, and I want to talk about it. And in order to do it, I have to talk a little bit about my journey to my marksmanship to where it is now. I didn't start shooting like this randomly overnight. I didn't start shooting like this randomly overnight. It took a lot of years, and it took a lot of training in order to do that. Now, first things first is I want to answer this quick little question. So there are some training schools out there that will tell you that through their YouTube videos that you can't get full-fledged training through YouTube, and that you have to go to in person, and you have to get training through them in person. There's a couple things I want to address with that. And the first thing is basically this. If you have something new in the house that you're not sure how to do, and you're having a hard time understanding the instructions, where do you usually go to find out how to put something together, how to take something apart, how to clean something, how to do something like that? Where do you usually go? If you're like me, you go to YouTube and you look it up on YouTube, and usually there's a good instructional video that teaches you how to do something by the numbers. Like, okay, you do this, you do this, you do this. And if you usually follow those videos, I guarantee you, you will get the job done good, and just as good as some pros. I don't know if you'd say that, but you get the job done very well just by watching those YouTube videos. Now, if I take that argument to the shooting world, to the pistol shooting world, to the tactical world, and say that, you know, you can't get any legitimate training or instruction when it comes to the YouTube, then how is it that we are able to put stuff together just by watching YouTube videos and do it very well, right? Now, the same thing applies to the shooting world. When I first started shooting, when it came to pistols, I was a rifleman in the Marine Corps. When I first shot a pistol, it was a Beretta M9, and I couldn't hit worth a damn. I couldn't hit anything because I was jerking the trigger like crazy and stuff like that too. I'd have people that would tell me all kinds of mixed things, like when it comes to a double action trigger. We got it right here, this one's clear. When it comes to a double action trigger, you just pull it really fast through that first shot, and then take the second shot, because after you pull that first shot, there's a really nice single action trigger. So when you first take that shot, just jerk it as fast as you can just to get to those nice single action shots, and then do that. I was taught a lot of crap like that when I was in the Marine Corps when it came to pistols, and this is a Beretta 92X. This is kind of based off of the M9. So I didn't have a whole lot of good training when it came to pistols. I was a rifle marksman. I was really good with a rifle. I was really good with a 40 millimeter grenade launcher. But I was really, really good with a rifle. But when it came to pistol, it was like a different world to me. And I had no clue what I was doing, and I couldn't shoot worth a damn. Until I had a gunnery sergeant come up to us when we were trying to qualify. And he says, have you guys ever had any training when it comes to pistols? And our response was, me and two other guys, like, no, we're infantry guys. We usually do this. And he's just like, yeah, that makes sense. And then within 30 minutes of his instruction, all three of us became sharpshooters when it came to a pistol, and that's within 30 minutes of this gunnery sergeant's instruction. And I will tell you, this gunnery sergeant was part of the Marine Corps shooting team at the time. This dude was good. He knew what he was talking about, and he knew how to teach it very well. I never would have been able to do that unless I was in person with him with him telling me and working with us single-handedly to be able to shoot the gun efficiently. After that, I started getting interested into pistol shooting because I was like, okay, so this is actually, if I follow what this gunnery sergeant said, I can actually get really good at this. And I started getting into pistol shooting, and I really fell in love with it, to the point where today I prefer pistol shooting over rifle shooting. I just do. I'm good either way, but I have more fun with pistols when it comes to shooting. Now, when I first started carrying a firearm, when it came to as a civilian world, I was still active duty Marine Corps at the time. I couldn't carry on duty, I couldn't carry on the base, but the second I was home on the weekends, I would be carrying on my hip, and that was a Ruger P345 PR, because that was the very first pistol I ever owned. And the holster I was using was some crappy nylon holster, like I think it was an Uncle Mike's holster that I picked up, because I just didn't know anything about carrying a gun other than how I did it overseas in Iraq. And yes, I did carry a pistol over in Iraq on occasions. During my second tour, I had to search a lot of vehicles. We do vehicle checkpoints. We touch down in the CH-46 Chinooks. Well, it's smaller than a standard Chinook. It's smaller than a CH-47. The CH-46 is the Marine Corps version of it, which actually has benches in it, which is kind of nice. But we would touch down in random areas, and we do vehicle checkpoints, searching for basically terrorist intel or for firearms or explosives on these vehicle checkpoints. So I was a grenadier, and when you have 240 machine guns, which are basically 7.62 by 5.1 machine guns, you have Mark 19s and you have 50 cals, because we usually did it with ODA teams and they had their vehicles out there with us. There wasn't a whole lot of use for a 203 grenade launcher, so me and another 203 grenade launcher guy became the vehicle searchers. So we would hand off our rifle in a 203 to someone else, and we would have a pistol on our hip in either a drop holster or shoulder holster. Drop holster was the preferred choice. And with that, I could get inside a vehicle, I could pull the vehicle apart, I could look for rifles, look for whatever I could find in those vehicles, look for intel, look for switches or anything like that. So up to that point, I wasn't the greatest when it came to a pistol. And when it came to carrying a pistol, that was the only time I've ever carried a pistol in a combat situation, was like that when I was doing these vehicle searches. So I wasn't exactly what you call an expert when it came to a pistol. And to this day, I don't know if I'm not going to call myself an expert, because I'm not when it comes to pistol shooting. But as a civilian, back in 2005, I got out of the Marine Corps in 2006. Every weekend when I'd go home to Arizona, I was with my wife and stuff like that, I would have a gun on me. And it was usually outside the waistband, because at the time there was laws that in Arizona you had to carry open. And if you wanted to carry concealed, you needed a special permit. So me, I didn't have the time to get the permit, so I would just carry open in an Uncle Mike's holster. And that was kind of where I was at. Now, after that, I got out of the Marine Corps and stuff like that too, and I started getting bored, and then I got into the National Guard. I did security for a while, then I got to the National Guard. And in the National Guard, it was kind of interesting to me, because just about every single guy it was Arizona Air National Guard, that was in uniform, was carrying a pistol, a concealed pistol. And it was new to me, because I'm like, wow, we're concealed carrying. I didn't think we can carry in our uniforms, and technically we weren't allowed to carry in our uniforms, but it was Arizona. And needless to say, a lot of the guys that I served with in the National Guard were cops, corrections officers, federal agents and stuff like that too. So they usually carried a gun. Border Patrol guys, they'd carry their HKs and stuff like that too. So I was kind of introduced to concealed carry, and then the laws changed in Arizona at the time where you could legally carry concealed. It was a right to carry state from then on, so you could carry open or concealed. So then I started carrying concealed, and I was kind of shitty at it because I had no clue what I was doing when it came to concealed carry. So I had to look up different ways to carry a gun, and this thing was out that was called YouTube. That's right, YouTube. And then I started learning a lot when it came to concealed carry. And then I learned from watching those YouTube videos about learning about concealed carry, learning about products I could use for concealed carry, that there was also people out there that were teaching people how to conceal carry. People that were teaching the basics of drawing, people that were teaching the basics of self-defense when it came to a pistol. And I started becoming a fan of the YouTube firearms channels. I would go and watch them. And this channel right here, I've been around for 5 years now, give or take. There's a lot of YouTube creators that I got a lot of my knowledge from. Now, I'm not saying I haven't had training outside of that. I had training in the military, and believe it or not, I haven't gone to a ton of schools. I've only gone to a couple training places. I've gone through a couple NRA instructors, 2 NRA instructors. I've gone through Tactical Dynamics LLC to become my instructor to actually get certified as an instructor. And then I went to Sig Sauer Academy, where I did some training through that. Those are the only places I've had outside the military training when it comes to firing a pistol or concealed carry or whatnot. All the other stuff that I've learned over the years, my knowledge on firearms, like I always joke around my family, my brain is like an encyclopedia of gun knowledge that's just dying to get out, so I can't stop talking about guns all the time. Just ask my wife and family. It's pretty bad. Where did I get all that information? Well, I didn't get it from all the schools. I didn't get it from the National Guard. I didn't get it from the Marine Corps. I got it from YouTube. All right, I got that information from YouTube. Now, there is a lot you can learn by going online and looking up information, but there are some caveats that come to it. So that's the fancy word that Paul Harrell likes to use. There's some caveats that comes down to it. The instructors that you have to watch have to have a background in it. They have to have a background, like an actual functioning recommended background. They have to have that background. They can't be, you as a viewer have to be able to interpret, let's say, I don't know the best way to explain it. You need to be able to, the best way to explain it is like this. There's so many instructors out there. There's no one set way to do things. There's no one set way to do things. There are a lot of different ways to do things when it comes to firearms. There's different techniques that you could use, different ways of gripping it. There's different ammunitions you could use. There's different sights. There's all kinds of optics. There's all kinds of things that you can learn. And there's a lot of instructors that are always batting heads over this because one teaches this way, one teaches that way. What you need to do as a viewer is you need to watch these people and take what you like from what they're teaching, and you kind of combine it to what they're all teaching, and then you kind of come up with your own way that seems to work very well for you, because everyone's genetics are differently when it comes to holding a gun. One instructor might be pushing this one gun all the time, and they're always pushing that gun, whereas one always pushes this gun all the time, but you don't like either one of it, but you kind of find it in between balance between those two instructors and their gun choices that they choose. So you choose that gun and you're like, hey, this thing works for me. Do you catch my drift? So the caveats are, one, the instructor has to have a legitimate background in training. And two, you have to be able to take all that information from the various instructors that you watched over the years, or reviewers, or whoever it is, and you have to be able to apply that to you into your life. Now, if you can get through those if you can deal with those caveats, right, you can actually learn a heck of a lot when it comes to concealed carry, to self-defense shooting and stuff like that. Now, over the years, there's been a lot of creators that I have followed that I have learned a lot from. There are some to this day that I still like to watch, whether I like their personality or not, that I learned so much from, and they have had a huge influence in what I do when it comes to my instruction, when I'm doing my classes, or here on YouTube when I'm talking to you guys. So back in the day of YouTube, there's a couple gun channels that I would watch, and that would be like Nothing Fancy. If I wanted a good review, I'd sit down to his tabletop reviews, which are like 45 minutes to an hour long, on a special pistol, and I would love those reviews, and I'd eat up all the information that he was feeding me on that gun. I'd also look at other channels that were in the area, which wasn't a ton of people at the time. I'd look at other channels during that time frame that would also do reviews on it. So I'd take the Nothing Fancy stuff and I'd take their reviews, and I kind of combine them together and figure out what works best for me. Now, when it came to firearm instruction, there was one legitimate instructor, and everyone can pretty much agree with this, who pretty much started the whole tactical firearms training movement. And that would be James Yeager over at Tactical Response. Now, love him or hate him, he knows his crap. All right, and he can teach a lot. His personality on the camera may not be your taste. It may not be your taste. Even some of the stuff that he does, it's not my taste, but I keep going back to him to get referrals because, honestly, I've learned a lot from him over the years through YouTube. I've learned a lot from him, and I started following Reed Hendricks through him because he was at Tactical Response. And then when he started his own school, Valley Ridge, and his own YouTube channel, I would go between Yeager and I'd go through Reed Hendricks. And I learned a lot between those two guys when it came to defensive firearm carrying from concealed carry. Then I've learned from John Lovell. I've learned from Paul Harrell. I've followed a lot of YouTube channels over the year that I've gotten a lot of personal information with. And me, I don't know how it works with me. Not everyone learns the way how I do. When I watch something on YouTube, I can pick it up pretty quickly, especially if there's a good instructor that teaches you what to do. I can pick it up pretty quickly, and then I can apply it to my own personal training. Now, Is that the perfect way to learn? No, it is not the perfect way to learn. You still need to go in person occasionally to get training. Now, I was a pretty good marksman, and I was a pretty good instructor for a while, and I was doing pretty good until I went to 6 Hour Academy one day. And I went to 6 Hour Academy. I got some training. It was Pistol 103, I believe it was. I got Pistol 103, and I learned from that class, it's like 500, 600 rounds later doing in class, that there were some bad habits that I had picked up and developed over the years. And within that day-long class, those bad habits were pretty much broken. And when those habits were broken, I learned something pretty crazy, is that my marksmanship jumped through the roof just after that one class that I took, because all that information that I learned in the class just sunk in. At the end of the class, there was an actual competition. We had a competition of all the people in the class where it was a distance-based competition. So we'd start at 7 yards and we'd work our way back. The entire class was like a competition to see who would last the longest when it came to the shooting. And we got back all the way to 45 yards, and it was down to me and another woman that was, I believe she was law enforcement at the time, that were actually still hitting the target. So we got to that, and she missed, and I kept hitting the target. And I wanted to move back farther and farther and farther, but they were done with the class. So like, oh, congratulations, you won, and here's your reward. You get a plaque. Great job. You learned a lot today. And I was sitting there at the 45-yard mark, and I'm still like dead on hitting the target. I'm like, wow, can I push back farther? And I was just like, I really want to start, pushing myself to see what I can actually do. Now, all the information that I learned from that class, I applied to my own personal training when I got home. That was in New Hampshire. I live in Connecticut. So I started applying that training that I learned in that class, which I absorbed pretty well, and I started bringing that and applying that to my own training. But here's the thing. When it comes to this, you can learn a lot. You can learn a ton by going online and watching videos like my videos, watching James Yeager videos, watching Reed Hendricks videos, watching Paul Harrell, watching Justin Opinion. He's kind of fun to watch too. Hickok 45. He teaches. He's more of a presentation, but he does do some teaching. If you listen and watch his techniques and stuff like that, you can learn something from him. You can learn a lot from those guys, but at the same time, you need to combine that with some actual in-person training. So you learn that stuff, then you bring it to the in-person training, whoever the trainer is. I went to 6 Hour Academy because 1, it's close, and 2, it's a very legitimate training school where some of the best marksmen I've ever known are actually instructors there. So you have to go and get training from those places. Now, another thing that I learned from watching these videos, and you see them on my videos as well, is there's a lot of tools that are available for you and me that we could go out there and get better, our marksmanship better, without even having to go to the range. Now, we still need to go to the range, but this stuff that if you take all the information you've learned from YouTube, you take the information that you learned from the in-person classes, use the tools that are available to us to practice that information that you learned from the class and the YouTube together, what happens is at the end of the day, you start doing groups like this. And then this isn't going to my head or anything, but then you have an owner of a range coming up to you to let you know that your marksmanship was intimidating to the rest of the people in the range. And that was never even occurred to me that I was doing that well when it came to shooting. I was just out shooting, testing out a mount for a specific gun. But from all of that training that I picked up over these years since 2005 is when I started doing it. And when it came to pistol stuff, that's where I got my basic training when it came to that. And then I started picking up when I got in the National Guard, and I got out of the National Guard in 2012. In that time frame, I learned a decent amount when it came to pistol, but after that it was all YouTube based. And then I did a few in-person classes, which kind of fortified and allowed me to find out what works well for me. Now, for me, for all that training that I've done over the years, all those YouTube information that I've gotten with the tools that I've picked up by watching YouTube, I've gotten better. Now, just a few tools that I use on a daily basis, like this right here, the Mantis. Okay, this is Mantis X, all right? I love this thing. This thing, if you don't know what it is, there's apps out there where you actually download a free app. You get this, you download a free app, and there's all kinds of programs that you can use on this that tells you what you're doing in person. Now, you can also combine this with something like this is a Mantis Training Academy with laser trainers and stuff like that too, and targets, and you combine those and you get like your own personal instructor that's telling you what you're doing wrong and where you need to improve and whatnot. Now, is it as good as an in-person instructor that know what they're talking about? No. However, By doing this stuff when I'm, at home, especially now with the ammo shortage out there, it has increased my marksmanship crazy amounts because I do this on a daily basis. I dry fire practice. There's a lot of people that'll go to these training schools and stuff like that they'll learn a lot of training schools. Like say if you go to 6 Hour Academy, you'll learn a ton at 6 Hour Academy, and then you come back and you don't practice it. It's just there. You went to a class once and then you never practice it, and you go to the range occasionally. Once you get back from those schools, from those training academies, you need to take that knowledge. You need to apply it to your range time, but you also need to focus on dry fire practice a lot too. And tools like the Mantis or laser trainers or whatever it is will help you hone in those skills to make you a better marksman over time, right? To make you a better marksman over time. So the answer is yes. Through YouTube, through internet, you can learn a lot when it comes to self-defense, when it comes to marksmanship. You can learn a ton, prepping, you name it, how to fix your lawnmower. You can learn all that stuff on YouTube. However, you still need some of that hands-on practice, a decent amount of hands-on practice, so you can take all that information that you've learned over those years of watching your videos and stuff like that, and watching the videos, other people's videos. You take that information, you bring it to those classes, and then those classes hone down those informations to you, and before you know it, you are just nailing it at the range. You are just nailing it at the range. So, if you haven't gone out and get training, one, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend you go out and get some actual in-person physical training. But you can learn a ton through the internet. At the same time, you have to be cautious because there are some, the internet isn't always perfect when it comes to training. But if you know what you're looking for in training and you've seen enough videos, you've been to enough training that you can actually figure out, okay, this is real tactics, this is real, and you combine that stuff together, I guarantee you your marksmanship will improve. 100%. It will improve. And after years of doing it and stuff like that, and the training in person and on the YouTube that you've learned, I guarantee you that you will be a better marksman than you ever dreamed of. Anyway, guys, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about me. And remember, it's our responsibility to take care of each other and protect each other. Peace.